We chose to replicate Edward C. Tolman's latent learning rat maze study.
In 1930, Edward C. Tolman further developed the concept of latent learning with his experiments. He wanted to examine the role that reinforcement plays in the way that the rats learn their way through complex mazes. In the experiments, Tolman placed hungry rats in a maze with no reward for finding their way through it. He also studied a comparison group that was rewarded with food at the end of the maze. As the unreinforced rats explored the maze, they developed a cognitive map, which is like a mental picture of the layout of the maze. And after 10 sessions in the maze without reinforcement, food was placed at the goal box at the end of the maze. As soon as the rats became aware of the food, they were able to find their way through the maze quickly, just as quickly as the comparison group, which had been rewarded with food all along. This is known as latent learning, which is learning that occurs but is not observable in behavior until there is a reason to demonstrate it.
This is Paprika, and Paprika had food every time. However, he was able to smell the food, so often left, resulting in many errors. This is Cilantro, who had food randomly throughout the experiment. However, she is very young and had a lot of difficulty with the task, so it didn't seem to affect her ability. This is Chives, and she had been given no food throughout the experiment. However, she successfully completed the maze on her first go in only 4 errors. I suspect this is because leaving the maze in itself is a reward, and therefore she got bored and further on made more errors. We performed the study by having 3 rats take turns completing the maze with the same parameters as Tolman, with 1 having no reinforcements until the last maze test, 1 with random reinforcement schedules, and 1 given food every single time. We counted the number of mistakes the rat made while going through the maze, and since all of the rats were able to jump over the maze barriers, this was also counted as a mistake if they had to be placed back into the maze. We based our design off of Tolman's map of what his maze looked like. We simplified it a little just to make it easier to build, but they had the same idea.
We chose a conceptual replication process due to time and resources. We had limited access to subjects and limited time due to their attention span. After only 4 trips through the maze, they displayed signs of boredom. Tolman was able to complete 13 maze exposures for each rat once per day for 13 days, whereas we had to gather all data in 1 day. In our graph on the left, the red line is Paprika, who got food every single trial. The green line is Cilantro, who got food randomly, and the purple line is Chives, who didn't get any food throughout the experiment. Based on our findings, there was no correlation between our data and Tolman's data. Our data proves that the outcome of the experiment depends on the age and intelligence of the animal, and it also may have something to do with these animals being pets. Some of them got bored and learned how to crawl over walls. We also did the experiment in 1 day, whereas Tolman did it in 13 days. In conclusion, latent learning is hard to be proven under these conditions, but it was not disproved.